Morning. Obviously, we've just enjoyed a comfort break. Anyone who wished to nip to the loo had a chance to do so. Sometimes a bit trickier for bus drivers who may find that there are no such conveniently located facilities as we have it in City Hall, along with a number of other issues that we've raised before, but me personally and the committee, such as excessive heat in the cab on hot days, which obviously is exacerbated by the lack of access to toilets, because TfL's advice to passengers would be carry water with you and drink it on hot days. And obviously, if you're not sure if you've got loo access, that's a risk. Obviously, we're now really out of the cold weather, hopefully, but in winter, some cabs aren't very warm, and that seems to have been an ongoing issue. And so having raised this multiple times, I suppose, Commissioner, my question is, what progress have we made on identifying and tackling all those bus driver welfare issues?
As you've heard me say before, and other TfL colleagues, we take the welfare of all our colleagues, including our bus drivers, extremely seriously. Since my time as Commissioner, we've invested significantly in driver toilets and welfare facilities, including new and significant upgrades in existing bus stations, new toilets where we can. As I think the committee's aware, we prioritise the routes into 3 different categories. We work with all the bus operators and Unite, who are the prime union for the bus drivers, as well as other stakeholders on bus routes who may be able to provide toilet facilities for drivers because they have them rather than having to build new ones. The highest priority routes are those which we classify as priority 1, that are those without a toilet at either end. Priority 2 are those that have access to a toilet but not for all hours of the operating day. And priority 3 routes are those with a round trip greater than 150 minutes with toilet provision only at one end of the route. We ensure when we create or look at new routes that we include toilet provision as a key consideration. Where could it be? Where is there? Or where's the opportunity to facilitate new facilities? Bus drivers on all the routes would know where there are facilities or not, and we are continuing to focus on how we can improve it across the network. In terms of other welfare issues, we have air conditioning or air cooling in all our buses. Obviously, we've seen some extreme periods of or some extended periods of extreme heat, and we work with the bus operators, as you heard me say before at the committee, to make sure that they are taking the appropriate actions to focus on the welfare of drivers, both prior to them starting their operating day, but also during the operating day, including making sure that all the buses are serviceable and have working facilities. And we're continuing now, as part of future bus design, to work more on what the future cab design is. London is leading the way here, not only for dealing with climate change, but also the ergonomics, particularly for drivers of different heights and weights, but also for women as well, which has traditionally not been something that the bus manufacturers have focused on. So there's a range of measures that we're focusing on, and I would encourage any bus driver who feels that they are not getting the appropriate support to escalate it to their operators. I've had some even come directly to me, and I've ensured appropriate action is taken to support those individuals.
So all that is positive, but obviously probably isn't very different from what you had told us when we've asked you previously. And I don't know whether you saw the ITV News report last Thursday, which essentially told the story of everything you've just described is not, let's say we're still a bit short of where we would like to be, and lots of drivers feel, A, that it's a long way short, and B, that the culture within the bus operators and the bus environment doesn't really seem to encourage people coming forward and saying, look, we've got this serious problem. Did you watch that report, and what did you make of it?
So yes, I've seen the report, and I'm pretty horrified by it. As I've said at the start, I recognise there's more that we need to do. I didn't attend it, but Lorna Murphy, our Director of Buses, had all the managing directors, all the bus operators in for a safety forum a short while ago, and there is recognition at senior levels that this needs to improve. And what we need to do is make sure, as with any large organisation, be it TfL, bus operator, a railway company or an airline, is making sure that the people leaders and line managers across the organisation act appropriately and respond appropriately in the event of colleagues needing support for whatever reason. So it is unacceptable what was reported in the media the other day. We need to make sure that that doesn't continue, and yeah, that is absolutely our focus and our priority.
I suppose what I would say is that it's not the first time, obviously, that I've brought this up, so I'm glad to hear that action's now happening. You gave three, what would they call them, three priorities for toilets for bus routes, 1, 2 and 3. So 1 is where there isn't a toilet at either end. So obviously that's particularly serious. But for 1, 2 and 3, how many are there in each category, and how many were there, let's say, a year ago in each category?
I don't have that information to hand, I don't think, but I'm very happy to write to you post the meeting to give you the information.
Thanks. But specifically on priority 1, though, obviously that is the top priority because it's where the bus drivers don't have access to a loo at either end of the route. I'm not quite sure what the official advice is other than to buy Oasis bottles. How many of those? It's not 0, presumably, that have no toilet either end.
I don't believe it's 0, no. But I will have to, I don't, again, have the number to hand, so I'll have to let you know.
Okay. And on air conditioning, so you said that, I know when I challenged you on this about a year ago, I kept using the word air conditioning and you kept responding with the word ventilation, which could just be an open window. So I'm glad that you're now talking about active cooling and air conditioning. You said that every bus has it. So every bus in the fleet has it, but not necessarily every bus has it working, I think would be what drivers would say. So what action are you taking to make sure that, you know, it's fitted when the bus is brand new, rolls off the production line, 5, 10 years later, those buses are in service. What action do you make sure that it's actually still working and effective?
So, as I just said, I expect every bus operator to make sure their buses are in full working order. Clearly, heating and cooling is more urgent in periods of hot weather or periods of cold weather, and I would expect bus operators to make sure they're not presenting a bus for service without suitable working air conditioning, air cooling or heating on the time of year. They will have a maintenance regime that they'll have to follow in terms of inspection and overhaul. We need the drivers to make sure they are reporting defects so that the bus operators can take appropriate action. I've visited a number of bus depots and you know, they have comprehensive maintenance regimes to deal with those and deal with defects.
I think the word you used there was expect. You would expect the bus operators to do that. But I think I've heard enough reports that I would expect that there are cases where it doesn't happen. So I suppose that's really what I'm asking for is to what extent is TfL coming in? And to give an example, disabled access ramps for buses, you would expect those to work, but you don't just allow to, you know, happenstance that they do work. You enforce it. You make sure they do work. And my understanding is you don't pay the operators if they have buses driving around without a functioning disabled access ramp, which I think is a very good idea. But you don't apply that to, let's say, making sure that the driver you know, the cab temperature is within a comfortable range. You wouldn't apply that same approach.
I don't believe that we have that sort of regime in place, and we don't have the resource or the ability, nor should we, to go and inspect every bus before it enters service every day. That is the operator's responsibility. That's part of their safety and operational requirements.
Yeah, I think what I would expect is maybe dip sampling, something like that. That would be the normal approach.
So my understanding is that we do that when we go and visit, either when we go on board buses in service or when we go visit depots. I don't have the detail to hand, but I would certainly expect us to be doing that.
Would you be, I mean, I would hope you're doing it. If assuming that you are doing it, would you be able to publish the results of that? You know, if 80%, 70%, 98% are passing those sort of random samples when you check them?
Well, let me take the action away to see what data we've got, and then I can write to the committee and let you know how we do that. And I don't know if, whether or not we'd make that public or not. I've got nothing particularly to conceal, but I need to understand what data we've got and how we report it.
I think the reason I ask for it is obviously it would help to reinforce the idea that this is something that TfL is taking seriously and is on the side of the driver, and would help it would help us to get out of this problem whereby drivers feel that it's not working properly, but they're not quite sure whether they can really. In fact, I'll put it stronger than that. A lot of drivers feel they can't raise it because they flag themselves as a troublemaker. Whereas if TfL is coming in, testing it, going, well, this is not good enough, only 75% of buses on our spot checks have got working air conditioning, the drivers can feel some confidence that they haven't got to stick their head above the parapet and put a target on their back, as it were. That's a weird mixed metaphor. But
so we absolutely do audits. I don't get into the detail of that. I'm happy to look at that. But I would equally, and I've been very clear when I've had bus drivers contact me directly, I expect bus operators to take action when bus drivers report defects or refuse to take a bus into service because it hasn't got the appropriate working facilities. Now, there will always be times in any transport sector where there will be certain pieces of equipment that are not safety critical and that will enter service because it's allowable under a maintenance defect or whatever. But we need to make sure, in particular, when it's periods of cold weather or hot weather, that we've got cooling and heating facilities for bus drivers, and they should absolutely have the ability to refuse to take a bus into service. Or, clearly they're mechanical, they can fail in service, take the bus out of service if they feel it needs fixing, and the bus operator should respond accordingly.
Good. And then final thing is just about fatigue management and rostering, really. I know this was something, I think it must be 4 years ago maybe, that I asked the TfL head of safety whether she would effectively impose a kind of best practice driver rostering and fatigue management system. So obviously this is something TfL has a huge amount of expertise on, from London Underground, TfL Rail, and actually the trams subsequent to Sandylands. This was a big lesson learned, and I've seen improvements in that. I think there's been some movement. Are we at the point where TfL is effectively saying we're now confident that the rostering and fatigue management approach to bus drivers is just as good as, let's say, tube drivers or tram drivers?
So we take the issue extremely seriously, and obviously with my background in aviation, I'm very familiar with it. So, we're in regular discussions with Unite the Union and the bus operators around what more we can do. Excuse me. I would not yet sit here comfortably to say we're at the leading edge of that, but I think we're certainly probably at the forefront in terms of UK bus operations. I think there is more that we can do. Clearly, if you take the trams, we have very specific technology installed on the trams post the Sandylands tragedy. We want to do that. I would love to see that sort of technology rolled out more widely in transport, but there are issues that need to be worked through with the unions on that, and the cost, and with the operators. This
is the kind of eye movement detection, sleep
exactly.
detection stuff.
And we want to make sure we have rosters that do not create fatigue and that enable the bus operators to have the appropriate welfare and well-being. But we're making progress, I think. More to be done.
But when I look at the trams, it's not just, the eye detection movement thing is a small part of a huge culture change, in the whole kind of driver welfare, driver well-being outside of work as well as in work, understanding that health conditions can have an effect. If someone's got sleep apnea, that's affecting their fatigue. And it's 10 years since that happened on the tram, and many years since I've been speaking to the people in the trams, and it's a sort of transformative cultural attitude within London trams that I can see that has made that issue significantly better, not just slightly, significantly better. And I can't understand why it is that 10 years after the Sandylands crash, where this fatigue thing came to light in a TfL surface environment, why it is we're still having what I would call a sort of tentative conversation about, doing better, rather than a much clearer, bolder conversation about, we know how to do this on London Underground. We now know how to do it on the trams. We've got years of experience. Why are we not there on the buses? I don't understand why it's just so different.
Well, I think trams was tragically after a horrific incident where a number of people lost their lives and were seriously injured. So much smaller operation. And I think it didn't actually go live till 2020 or even 2021. So we're talking about that sort of technology being installed on 9,000 buses with multiple companies.
Sorry, I don't want us to obsess about the eye movement technology. It's really, that's a small part of a much bigger cultural shift that I think is much more important. The rostering, the driver welfare, the whole thing, shift patterns.
So I don't think we're doing this tentatively. We are trying to do it robustly across the whole operation, but we operate the biggest bus network in Europe. 9,000 vehicles, 25,000 drivers, the associated support and management around that. and we are working closely with the union and the operators to see how we can do this in a comprehensive manner. And I think we are now making some progress on that, but it is going to take time to introduce and have confidence that we've got that across the board. It's something that I feel strongly about, but we've got to do it in a way that's engaging and people recognise it's for their benefit and not something that's being imposed because they worry that it'll be used against them, which it absolutely won't be.
The bottom line is you'll accept the bus management of fatigue and
Assemblymember
rostering.
Garratt.
It's not quite where the LU and the
Assemblymember Garratt.
tram is.
They're really, really important questions, but we're covering the same ground over and over again, and we've got lots of things to still cover.
That's
So
a yes,
are you
no
able
question.
to...
So if he can say yes or no to that question, then I'm done.
There's more to be done.
Never knows.
That's a no. Thanks, Chair.